be hopefully more relatable for us as NGOs. So I'll be role playing from here on out as an organization myself, helping to answer our questions together. So now I'm going to tell you a bit about my organization. So I'm coming to this workshop as a program manager of a organization called Co-Opportunities. We're based in Barcelona, Spain. We have about 30 full-time employees, and we are a workers' cooperative lab. So we provide resources for workers' co-ops who are starting just from the beginning, and we're helping them with economic resources, with legal resources, and other technological resources as well. So I'm here to just start to open the door to AI governance for my own organization. And if you're like me and have very little experience, this is a great time to put yourself in my shoes as well. And if not, maybe you can help answer my questions throughout this discussion today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
thank you, Grace, for introducing that.
Yeah, and I think the most important question for me and probably for most of us here today is what is exactly AI governance? What do you mean when you say that? Maybe I understand it a bit from my own perspective, but can you give us a definition?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you, Grace. And so first, to understand what exactly we're talking about when we say AI governance for NGOs in this specific context. So the definition is quite clear, actually. If you have done any other type of governance within your organization, whether it's data or privacy relevant governance, and this is the set of organizational policies, processes, available tools, and accountability mechanisms around this broader topic of AI. And its main purpose is to make sure that your organizations, your NGOs can innovate with AI safely and ethically. And this is also one of the, or many of people's burning question for today. And hopefully that with this workshop, we're going to dive in more into this. And so, yes, I hope that answers a bit better, like what is AI governance, Grace?
Yeah, so I think I understand it. It aligns what I thought before about using AI ethically and with values, things like this. It makes more sense to me. But I also wonder because for me, I'm coming from a small NGO, what we don't really implement so far is AI very much in our work. So I'm wondering, like, besides using ChatGPT or DeepL day to day, how can we know that AI governance would be important for us and for our work?
Yeah. Yeah, I think this is a very common and also important question, right? And for me, I think the answer has three different levels to it. So first, I think AI governance is important for NGOs regardless of size or specific sector, is because AI is a very transformative technology. It is such a social hot point, and this technology is very rapidly changing the way we live, and it's changing our economy, it's changing our labor market, how we consume media, and how we create culture and art. And it's impacting our society from all dimensions. And whether we decide to use AI or not, we are actually influenced by this technology. And on the other hand, NGOs, I believe, have a very important role in this process because NGOs have like the responsibility because it operates at the intersection of social impact, trust, and ethics. And it is very important to have this leading role to implement for like the implementation of responsible AI. And lastly, more specifically for the organizations themselves, I believe AI governance help NGOs to be able to explore the benefits of AI while also be able to mitigate the risks so that such as the risks are such as like bias, inequality, and the misuse of this technology. And so that we can actually really, like what we previously said, with the purpose, innovate with AI safely and ethically. And to better understand this, I would like to use a set of case studies. So on this quadrant, I want to introduce you to the AI governance focus and impact for NGOs. So on the left-hand side, we're focusing on opportunities. And on the right-hand side, we're focusing on the risks of AI. And I believe that it has also different levels of impact, so for organization and for beneficiaries. And if we first look at the opportunities of AI for organizations. So if this is the governance focus of us, then we're really thinking about how to amplify the organization's impact by improving efficiency, productivity, and decision making. And one case study from Greenpeace Australia. So they raised more funds by using AI to predict donors who are most likely to respond to direct mailing campaign. And this is a very important matter. And so here, like on the chart, we can see that this is the return on investment, and like on the x-axis is days since the campaign started. So about 2 months of time on the red line. So this is donors that was not chosen by the traditional marketing tool and also not by the AI tool. And on the blue one, it is donors that were chosen by both the traditional marketing tool and also the AI tool. And the green line is donors that were only chosen by AI tool, but not the traditional marketing tool. And so from here, we can see that basically, if we didn't use the AI tool, we would have lost this part of the donor and the funding. So donors chosen by AI would otherwise be missed, have achieved a 5 times return on investment. Of course, we don't really know exactly how much was the investment, but that is still very interesting and valuable resources that could have been missed otherwise. And next, if we are thinking about our AI governance focus is on for the beneficiaries, and we're really exploring the opportunities of AI. A good example, I think, is this chatbot that was made by Jacaranda Health, and they operate in Kenya to use AI to deliver real-time maternal and newborn health advice using SMS. And so they have been able to provide health advice for more than 2.4 million new and expecting mothers. And also they use the AI tool to mark high-risk mothers. And so 90% of these high-risk mothers were flagged by AI, received care at hospital, which is a very crucial support for them. And so for the first exercise, Grace, would you like to?
Yeah. So getting these practical case study examples, I think, is a really helpful way to understand, how does this actually, this technology help my organization, but also what is it doing potentially for our beneficiaries? And I made my own reflections. You can scroll down a little bit to see, because I thought as you illustrated these about my own organization of how we could potentially be using AI to offload work for our staff, potentially to draft reports or to draft different project plans, but also maybe AI tools to help us with grant applications. That's a big thing that we're working on all the time. And for beneficiaries, it could be that maybe there is potential to create an AI bot that could answer questions about workers' rights or legal requirements for different businesses. So these are my ideas. Now I want to invite though the others in this space to share with us their own contributions. So first I'll explain a little bit how it's going to work, because we will return to the board in a moment, but we will also be putting this group into different breakout rooms. So you will be in a breakout room, and there you can together create a sticky note. You'll see that there'll be the same activity, but now open to you to write down a few opportunities and a few for the NGO and a few opportunities for beneficiaries. So together brainstorm a few in your group and then create a single sticky note with your responses. We'll send again the link to the board if you haven't already been there. And hopefully we've done some trial and error on how it's working. But again, if you have questions about the technical part, please put them in the chat. And we can go ahead in a few minutes here and break out for discussion and writing a note on your opportunities for the organization and for beneficiaries.
So I see that some people are still working on the board. Then I would already start looking at some of them that seem to be finished. Later, after the next exercise, we will also have a question and discussion round. So if you have any question, that will be the opportunity. So here we can see on this note. So this group said that for their organization, the opportunity will be related to fundraising, research for donors, question about direct mailing. So yeah, this case study and summaries. So these are some more specific for fundraising, but also for the organization productivity and efficiency. And if we look at this note, so here it says assistance, and I believe it's more like an AI assistant kind of thing. Communication tools to help improve the communication. Use AI for program participants, including child safeguarding. Okay, so interesting idea. I wish you guys had a chance to talk about this, and I believe later maybe there's also a chance for you to elaborate on this. So breakout room 4 said that they see that AI can bring opportunity as to organization act as a research assistant. Yes, yeah, that's a very good use. A tool to match appropriate funding. Yeah, that is also a very interesting research use. Reduce workload. Good. And room 3, generating texts, project reports, project applications, and pictures for the website, visualizing data, and this is a very good use also. Doing PowerPoint, yeah, this is very specific communication and marketing use of AI, detecting material profiles. Okay, interesting. All right, on the other side, for the beneficiaries, a group mentioned that this can help with accessibility related to issues. And for beneficiaries, a new way of learning, we need to train our educators and provide a frame for child safeguarding. So using it for training and be able to provide safeguarding opportunity. Okay, well, thank you for the participation. I'm pretty sure that there are still more to think and explore with these ideas, but yeah, now this is a very good start with this brainstorming. Then I would also just move back to continue our workshop content. So, as we have already done an exercise related to this exploration of opportunities, on the risk side, this is also very important. So, if we're talking about AI governance focus as the risk, and for your organization, what you're really focusing on is to prevent any security risks and the misuse of AI platforms and tools. An example would be, so actually, since 2022, there are several different survey-based research, and they all found similar amount of data, which is around 40% of the employees who use AI admitted to have submitted sensitive or confidential data to AI platforms without their employers knowing about this. And so this could potentially make you this could potentially lead to data breach or violation towards GDPR or data privacy laws of your region. And so in this case, the governance focus is really about providing such AI training program to help your employees to use AI correctly, and by which I mean to use AI both productively but also securely. And this is to prevent any potential legal issues and reputational damage to your organization. And move on to the next focus. If your AI governance focus is very much.
Yeah, just jump in for a second, because when it comes to legal issues, I mean, there is an obligation since February 2025 by EU AI Act that you have to prove that your staff do know what they do, and you have to show in case, you have to provide proof that they know what they do. Yeah, so that they are trained on AI and how to use it.
Exactly. Now it is also turned into an obligation, and thank you for the information. And later we will actually also cover part of this related to legislation. Yeah. And thank you for the update. And related to the AI governance focus and the impact, we're really looking for the risks associated like with AI usage for your beneficiaries. So we're really trying to protect the marginalized communities from potential AI bias and harmful content. And another survey result also show earlier this year that 35% of teenagers admitted they have been misled by AI-generated false content. And this is people who have teenagers who have realized that they were misled and admitted, and likelihood that more people were misled, but never really fully realized that they were AI-generated content. And this is also something to be aware of. And in this case, the governance focus say that you work with children. It is important to provide accessible training on the safe use of AI to help them understand this technology and how it could be misused, and to protect these marginalized or vulnerable groups from the negative impact of such generated false content. And so that also leads us to the second exercise. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's probably a question for a lot of us here about risks. I think it's a very important part of understanding AI governance for me and how to keep up with them, these risks. I think for my organization, I also already thought of some examples. So if you scroll down again to some comments from me, I think that this example you give about leaking confidential information, although the AI Act is something that we're going to talk about later, I do think it's a worry that we can have, that people are not trained properly. And also that maybe in another case, more simple, like with ChatGPT or something, we can trust a little bit too much the answers related to legal advice, for example, for workers. And for the beneficiary side, the bias of I've heard of an example in the past of AI systems that are trained on biased data, and maybe this could be a problem for some of the workers in our project. So these are a few ideas I also thought of as risks. And again, I want to give us all an opportunity to do the same. So we will again break out. I know it's a short amount of time just to start the reflection, but we will do the same exercise now again to think of the risks for your NGO and also for beneficiaries. So we'll give a few minutes again. Try your best to write a few short reflections. Don't focus on writing a paragraph. We'll meet you back here in about 5 minutes. So you can join the breakout rooms and head back to the board. I'll send the link again.
I can see that Dushan is writing really fast and with no typo or mistake. Very impressive.
Perfect.
Here, Dushan also wrote down the art of writing is at risk due to the over-reliance on Gen AI. I don't think that's the case for you specifically. That's for sure.
I'll take that compliment. Even though, as Malati beautifully framed it, it's more about people who generate text, right? And so then there's, but I would also let her share that example.
Okay, so thank you for once again participating in this section. And I would also just say that there are a lot of notes, and we can bring some of these ideas and points into our later discussion. But as a quick summary, I could see that here we have concerns related to the data privacy issue that we previously talked about, for organization side. And there are also concerns related to the dis or malinformation, which is very found. And there are also some other interesting points related to the digital divide within the organization between people who use AI and don't. And so yeah, we also noticed that there's such a shift of expectation in the organization's operation mode. So here the example is Gen Z leaves organization because they expect speed. This is also a very interesting observation, and I guess this is something that within the organization that we should obviously be prepared to discuss and also understand the employees' needs. And also there are other concerns related to the reliance on using generative AI tools. And yeah, as an organization, how should we address this on a policy level, and how should we teach our people to best use these tools? Very important questions. Incorrect decisions. Yes, this is the accountability issue related to the use of AI. If we use AI and not get good result, who is the accountable person, etc. Yeah, and the potential issue with bias. Okay, And on the side for beneficiaries, which I also think that some of the concerns actually covered here also like are applicable for beneficiaries or for beneficiaries. So they are related to mostly the AI bias, gender data gap, and also the role of global south being exploited, which is also a very good point because at this, for beneficiaries, I think, yeah, I think like maybe later in the discussion, I want to understand this points because now they're very short and brief, a bit better, and also concerns related to misdis and malinformation for your beneficiaries, very well understandable. Incorrect advice. So we're really concerned about the reliability of the AI, and we're also concerned about how the people are using AI within our organization. And yeah, so with this kind of awareness, yeah, do we want to have like so far like these two exercises are really meant to sort of like brainstorm and to see like open up our eyes to understand what are the opportunities and what could be the potential risks, and if you do have any questions or if you have any reflection you would like to share, and this will be a good moment. Yes.
Yeah, I'll just say as well that this is a starting point, so we are going to have more chance to talk as we go on. I know it's a lot of thinking that generates now, so maybe we try to keep questions short now so we can get into some more content for you. Any burning questions?
I think we can go forward because we have still two big topics in front of us.
Yeah.
Okay. Then thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, so it's a great starting point. And so far, I think we understand the concept of AI governance a little bit, mostly from this framework of risks and opportunities. But I want to know actually, how do we get started with this? What is the practical starting point for foundational beginner to look at AI governance?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a very critical question, and this is also a very complex question because this is a difficult thing. This is a complex technology. Where should we start? And first, I want to introduce that the 3 levels of AI governance introduced by IBM. So they set it into 3 levels, and I tried to summarize their block of text in the simplest language possible. And so on level 1, you have the informal governance. And basically, you are saying that with this, we're trusting our team to do the right thing. And it's always nice to trust your team, but the potential result is that you are solely relying on individual judgment, and you have the potential risk of violating safety standards and laws. So that's on the level 1. And on level 2, there are the ad hoc governance. So the team is only creating rules and fixing problems as they come or as we become aware of them. And this can provide temporary solutions or like an urgent quick fix to the issue, but you can only deal with the harm after it occurs. And on level 3 is the formal governance. So it means as an organization, we will plan, prepare, and innovate proactively so that we can make sure that we are compliant with the laws and we can prevent potential harms before they even occur. And we can ensure that we are systematically innovate and reduce the risks for our organization and beneficiaries. And so from there on, I would like to introduce 4 types of tools of AI governance that your organization should know at this moment. So on the level 1, we have the necessary foundation, which is legislation and regulation. And these are the rules enacted by and enforced by the government. On the second level or the second tool, we have AI principles, and these are often simple guiding concepts and values. And then we have the AI frameworks. These are more to turn these principles into structured guidelines or like focused on operations, and so more implementable. And last one is the standards and certifications. These are the set of practices that are often the industry best practice or standards, and then you can show that you have such compliance. So first up with AI governance, the foundation is really the legislation and regulation. So these are the legally binding rules set by the government or regulatory bodies. And one example would be the current EU AI Act. And previously, I believe that was colleagues from Südwind also mentioned that now it have become like a obligation for organization to show that they are compliant. And our suggestion on this, or there are setups, but like there's also some sort of catch to this, because the current legislation and regulation, they're not available for all jurisdictions. In EU, there's the EU AI Act, and in US, previously there was a voluntarily participated AI guideline, but under the Trump administration, it has been taken down, and also the US and UK just refused to join the AI safety agreement that was signed globally by 60 plus countries, including China, India, France, etc. And so the legal aspect of how AI should evolve is still a very unclear one. And there are certain strengths and challenges that come with this specific AI tool. So having a legal framework or regulatory framework help to reduce the ambiguity for organizations on what to do and what should do, and increase public trust by demonstrating this type of formal commitment by abiding to the law. The challenges are there are certain difficulty in legal interpretation for certain areas. For example, there are still a lot of ongoing lawsuits around AI and intellectual property, and also certain aspects about spirituality, etc. And lastly, there's also what I just mentioned, a slow development in the legislation compared to how rapidly this technology is advancing. So the best that you can do, we recommend, is to, if you are within a jurisdiction, of course, you have to be compliant. But if you're not, you should also stay informed, because a lot of these governing bodies are currently making such legislation and regulation available. A little bit related to the EU AI Act, we also prepared a little bit of additional resources. Here you can learn more about the EU AI Act, and there's also the compliance checker. These are links that you will be able to find at the end of the workshop. Yeah, and also attend our future workshop to make sure to stay up to date. And the second tool is the AI principles. These are some set of high-level statements of ethical or responsible AI goals. And so an example is the OECD value-based AI principles. It covered the most common 5 points of AI governance. And you will also be able to find frameworks created by Google or IBM, but also like by government. And there are certain sets that's common, as I said. We also recommend you to learn more about the applicable AI principles by using our additional resources. One is from NetHope, Humanitarian AI Code of Conduct. This is something that you can sign and participate, and also a Responsible AI Institute AI policy template. So when it comes to AI principle, there are a set of strengths. These principles provide this overarching ethical vision that can be easily communicated. And it can also be adopted regardless the size or the sector that your NGO is operating within. And the set of challenges of using AI principle is because that they lack of certain specific ways on how to implement these principles, and different organizations can also interpret these different principles very differently. So for instance, when we come to talk about transparency, how exactly is that interpreted and implemented? Different organizations could differ on that. And so we recommend you to look at these common principles and to try to tailor them to your organization's mission, industry, and risks. Compare them with your core value as an organization and see if there's any missing spot. And pair the principles with concrete policies, whether there are existing policies or new policies around AI, processes, and metrics to make them more tangible. And the third tool is AI frameworks. So these are set of structured guidelines that translate these principles into more actionable steps. One example is the NIST AI risk management framework. In this framework, they use this process called map, measure, manage to create this repetitive or iterative cycle of governance, because governance is fundamentally a dynamic process. It will not just be once done and for all. And so to learn more about this, you can also find in our additional resources this management framework playbook. So for this kind of AI frameworks, the strength is that they provide very structured steps on how to implement the AI governance, and they can be adapted for different use cases, teams, or projects. Later, we will also do the exercise based on the specific framework. And challenges are that some frameworks can be overly detailed. And if you look into the playbook, you will see that it is quite detailed and it's difficult to navigate. And it really requires time and expertise to implement this effectively. And we recommend you to find the most important elements and adapt it to your organizational needs, and not to just follow the playbook step by step or wholesale. And lastly, the standards and certification. So these are some sort of formal benchmarks or accreditation that basically confirms that your organization's practice meets the industry best practice or this criteria. An example would be the current ISO for 2001. This is an AI management system certificate. Such standards or certificate, they provide very specific technical and procedural criteria, and so even more tangible, and they also demonstrate this adherence to recognized best practices. But the challenge is that these standards and certificates can be expensive and time-consuming to acquire, and some of these certificates, as it is today, they are still very focused on the technical aspect, and could be quite narrow on these areas instead of like a holistic governance for your organization. So we really recommend you, it's a need-based thing. And if you do think this is necessary, you should focus on the standards and certification that align with your goals and the expectation from your stakeholders. And with that being said, is there any questions related to the current section? Okay, and if not, Grace.
Yeah, so overviewing these two examples that you give of the different levels and also of the 4 tools, I put a bit myself, like I want to maybe say where I would put us now.
Mm-hmm.
The level of governance we have is probably somewhere between 1 and 2, more towards 2, because we don't just trust completely our employees to do it as they will. We know we have to follow some standards, but I think we would like to get to the point of having more formal governance. So getting to level 3 would be ideal.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say that we will make this activity available in the exercise board, but we won't have time to discuss this fully together. But you can also rate this for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I will make it available. And
Yeah.
then for the exercise here about the different tools, I would say that because we are in Europe, we already know that we have to follow things under the EU AI Act. So we're in this area of we need that tool for sure. And with principles, I would say as well, this is something that we have already a code of ethics, and some of those resources you shared, I think, are very helpful. And then a framework, it's something that we're working on. And I think that's the point of also coming here to this workshop today, is to develop it. But at this moment, I'm not sure we are ready for standard or certification or if it's applicable yet. But let's see. And I would encourage the other organizations here also to reflect. Do you feel that's similar for you or not? And you can also use the exercise that's in the document to do your own reflection, but
Yeah, interesting. So I think there are already organizations at this level in which they are actively creating rules and trying to fix the problems, because now with the more and more popularity the AI tools start to gain, and I guess we also incur or like encounter certain issues and would like to address them. And also there are yeah, very trust-based approach at this moment, but we can see that everybody wants to be able to plan, prepare, and innovate proactively. That's a very positive attitude, and yeah, great. And with the tools, oh, I see that some organizations are also interested in the standards and certifications, and mostly like believe that AI frameworks at this moment is the most important thing, which I also fully agree. Okay.
Can
Then
I ask you a question on that?
yes, of course.
Gabriel, hi. Bernard from Concordia. I would be interested if you could help us also then to look into these frameworks and the principles and so on and see what would be applicable. So I think we would need some kind of guidance or expertise to better understand what is applicable, what makes sense, and so on. So to have a sparring partner on that would be absolutely great.
Yeah. Thank you very much for Concordia's comment. And of course, I think like at AF or NGO, we are exactly trying to be there to support the development either on the technical capability side, but also very much about the governance capacity as the sparring partner. Yeah, and later this also connects very well because today we're focusing, the third section is really about hands-on to try to build an adaptive AI frameworks. And also the additional resources that we have provided will also give you some clues related to what can be implemented and how to implement them.
yeah,
Okay.
so it's actually a very natural segue. Thank you, Bernard. Because now I'm also wondering the same thing. Like, how can we actually get started with this?
I would like to know
Realism.
how many rules I break every day.
No, it's just thinking in line with us. Yeah. But yeah, let's start to see what we can actually do today. How can we start this process, especially with framework?
Yes. So it's makes me feel very happy to see that everybody is very like focused on developing this framework. And so for me, like I also previously mentioned that the NIST AI risk framework is not only risk relevant, it can also be translated into a pretty adaptive framework that can scale just like the AI technology itself. And which I think this is very important because AI is a very flexible and contextual technology. And the framework in which you need to govern it should also be very scalable and adaptive. And the core idea with this AI framework or AI governance framework is about map, measure, and manage. And to map is to identify and document the AI systems and the usage and the associated risks, and also, of course, the purpose. But we will dive a bit more into detail into that. And to measure is to be able to understand how at each level or to evaluate the system's performance, the ethical implication, and also like the compliance elements. And then we move on to the manage, which is like to concretely implement the policy, and also then we get back into the circle and to improve this whole governance continuously. And so in this section, we will do a step-by-step walkthrough process to identify the governance gaps that your organization may currently experience. Maybe we will find out how many times that you violate the rules every day, and also map that what is your next governance focus. And so today we will focus on the mapping, and for measuring and managing, this is also a lot more organization or context dependent. And so like in that case, we can be a sparring partner if we know more about it. But today we can start with this. And to map, we have 4 focus areas, which is technology, legal requirements, people, and principles. And from there on, this is a bit of an exercise. Yeah, so following these steps, if you want, you can write something in your notes, or you can do the thing on the whiteboard, or you could also just write in the chat. And if you don't know the answer, that's completely fine. This exercise or this section is meant to help you identify things that you need to find out after the workshop. And then these things that you don't know are the things that you should focus on, and their answer will help to shape the future of your governance. And with that, I would like to invite Grace to help me complete the exercises together.
Yeah, so as Gabriel said, you can also follow along in the exercise board. If you prefer to just listen, that's also fine. I'm going to provide some examples. So yeah, let's get started. To map the technology of my organization, what do I need to do?
So to start with that, I would recommend to create a very simple AI inventory, because this is the most important. You need to know what are the elements, what are the moving parts within your organization. And so 5 elements, the names and vendors. So for instance, you use Copilot, and then it's going to be from Microsoft. What's the purpose of it? And what's the risks associated with these tools? And who are using it? And where does the data come from?
Okay. So
Can I ask a question? If you say to name the names and the vendors, do you mean also web-based services? I mean, Microsoft Copilot might be an enterprise version, that's fine, but there is a lot of free web-based AI tools out there, and we don't know what kind of web-based services our colleagues are using. Or maybe I got the
Yeah, so that is like one thing to consider, because you say that if there are already a lot of like AI tools that you don't know exactly where it comes from, then it is also difficult for you to understand like if it is, for instance, GDPR compliant or not. Just as an example, it could also apply to the laws within your jurisdiction. And so it is always quite helpful to understand which tool that you're using, where does that come from, like, and what's the data policy look like. And this simple AI inventory is for you to have a broad idea to know like what basically it's answering the what question, what are we using? So yeah, if you don't know, this is something that I think we should try to figure out afterwards, because some of the AI sites will like use your data as the training data for future, and this is probably not something we want to use as an organization. Yeah, I hope that answers your question at this stage, and otherwise we would continue with the demonstration.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for raising that question. Yeah, now I'll share a little bit my answers, I guess, as an example. We can go down a bit. So following this inventory so far, from what I know for sure we've used ChatGPT, maybe other organizations as well, and mainly drafting reports, translation, research is the functions. I guess a risk is about data leaks. This is something we can be concerned with. And I'm a bit unclear on the last 2 points about what is the user group and also the data source. Maybe you can explain that a bit more, or?
So the user group, who has access and who are using this tool? Is it your marketing team? Is it everybody, or is it just like some employees? Because certainly, like because at this moment they don't have guidelines or etc. So this is to understand who's using it, and data source, what kind of data, and from where they're putting into this this AI tool that they're using. In this case, ChatGPT. So are they using just regular things that they type into, or are they using anything including your beneficiary's name, or are they using any data that's related to your finance or etc. And these are things that you should find out.
Good. It's a nice checklist to take back as well.
Yeah. And it's also recommended, or maybe in the end, you will end up with basically a simple AI inventory table with these different components. And from there on, you should start to be able to do some simple risk analysis, or also to understand how to, what is the best use case, etc. And so to answer the what question afterwards is to answer the who question. So there are certain very important things is that we need to find the right people, and this is especially associated with accountability. So in this exercise, we will map the owners of AI. So the first one would be having a steering committee for strategy and policy. The second element is that who is responsible for the employee training program. And the third one is that who can be responsible for the safety evaluation, and lastly, technical implementation. And how does this work for you, Grace, at Core Opportunities?
Yeah, so scroll down a bit for us.
Sorry,
Sorry.
can you
Yeah.
hear me?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So far we don't have a steering committee. That's what we need to actually get on right away. And we want to start training our employees on how to use the tools that we already use, and especially train them on data security. And we need to still define who has ownership over that. And as for the safety evaluation, I think our IT team will lead this, and as well as technical implementation. I will need to further specify with IT team how we go about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Perfect. So now you have identified the gaps for the responsible personnel or your accountability structure. Yeah, these are the things to be considered. And moving on to the next element would be relevant to the principle that we previously already talked about. And this is also can be combined or integrated within the framework. And so, as we previously mentioned, there are some common core AI principles, and you should also know, of course, you know that your organizational values, and to try to compare the tool and identify gaps is going to help us to understand if there's anything that we should keep in mind more carefully.
Yeah, and you can share a bit here, or you want me to share?
Oh, please go ahead.
Yeah, I did a little bit of matching beforehand of the AI principles with our personal organizational values, and I think like this example you gave, it does already align quite well with our core values, and we can say that we could adopt something like this. And I think though we do need to be more clear about the responsibility when it comes to the AI safety, like how we deal with the gaps that we have there.
Mm-hmm.
So,
So yeah, this not mapped part.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
I think this is a good example to work from the principles, and I know there's other different resources we have we can also share with the group about
Mm-hmm.
core
Yeah.
value principle mapping.
Yes. So this is, yeah, as a simple exercise or discussion with your teammates within your organization to understand if there's anything that's not covered by your current guiding value and principles, and that could be amended with the understanding of the certain or more specific targeted AI principles. And thank you, Grace, for the example. And the last components here we're trying to understand, which is mostly centered on the legal requirements. So the compliance requirements, the first one, is there any AI specific laws and regulations? Second, very important or more mature at this stage, is there any specific data, laws and regulations that you are obliged to?
Yeah, and I think we've talked about it now a few times, so I already know that the AI Act is something that we need to be consulting, and the resources you shared are also great for exactly telling us how we can, what we know is relevant to us or not. And as far as data, I know that we also need to be compliant with the GDPR, and maybe you could talk briefly about those two things, how they're connected.
Mm-hmm. So since your organization is operating in EU and first of all, like it have to be GDPR compliant, which means that your data or personal privacy is protected under this law, and your data should be managed within this EU context and should be compliant with that. And the AI Act, on the other hand, is more related to how the AI systems are functioning. And this, I strongly recommend you to look at, if you are within EU, to go to the additional resources, find the AI Act compliance checker. And this is a tool provided by the AI Act themselves. And they're also very clear on categorization and certain things, what to implement and what you should do, how should you communicate the AI systems that you're using. So yeah, that would be my suggestion at this moment. Since we do not have enough time for everyone to go through these exercises one by one, I would also recommend you to think about this, write them down, or also use the collaborative whiteboard to complete this mapping exercises. And more importantly, I would like to know if there are any questions or that we could discuss at this point related to the AI framework and any parts that were previously mentioned.
I have one question in the chat that says, since it is in the EU guidelines, how will it impact the recipient country, like if a country is funded by Germany? Do you know the answer to this?
If the organization is operating elsewhere but is funded by Germany?
Maybe, Malathi, if you could clarify it with us? Yes, like if it's being funded by a country in Europe.
For example, if it is a BMZ project from German government, funded in Kenya or in Tanzania or in Myanmar or India, how will this EU governance OECD standards will apply to it? For evaluation, we are following the OECD standards. Should we also bring this into the evaluation when we are into this, or what will be the bearing for us?
Yeah, so for the specifics, when it comes to laws and the specific regulations that this organization is subject to, I think depending on the organization's setup, this could be quite complex for me to just answer like this. But considering, I would say, like also just from like an ethical standpoint, considering how everything, if we're talking about the specific compliance issue, I think this is very like you need to decide on your organization. If you are already, for instance, this organization is already subject to GDPR, then I would also assume this organization is subject to the AI Act. So as such. And the second part of the question, so related to the OECD AI principle, and this is an example that we're using. And there are different type of AI principles. Some AI principles are more targeted towards the developers of AI, and some are more targeted to the people or the users or the organization that use AI. So here, like I chose a pretty neutral example in which these are the certain aspect related to it. And related to evaluation, I want to understand, are we talking about like related to the AI framework, the measuring part, like here? So in any case, I think like when it comes to evaluation, to compare the AI principles and what you have here, and to understand like what are you trying to prioritize? Is it transparency, safety, and there are also other aspects related to it? This is just basically amending what you are trying to promote with the use of technology.
Gabriel, I have a question from Bernard. Says, can you give one relevant example for NGOs where the EU AI Act would provide stricter rules than GDPR anyway does?
So this is one example would be, so there are also like new companies, but previously, for instance, Amazon had created this recruiting tool based on AI. And in the GDPR classification, I would say, like it's difficult for me to just tell you like which level it is at, because this needs to be more specified. But with such tool, so there are also like a HR tool nowadays using AI. And with this tool, there was the problem that it was found out to be biased against women or female applicants. And it was quite scandalous at the time. And so, for instance, if your organization is using such AI tools related to HR or recruiting, this like is not directly related to this bias created issue is not really directly related to the data or data privacy that GDPR governs, but this is related to the potential risk of AI bias, and that is what is subject to the AI Act. And I hope that distinguished the two a bit. Yeah. Is there more questions?
Just another question related to the previous one was if you recommend someone in India who could support this in a physical workshop on this topic.
Unfortunately, yeah, I would say no. I wish I could physically also recommend someone to help, but no. But if you're interested in developing this capacity, yes, I would love to be able to support with materials and etc.
So we can approach you, isn't it? Can
Yeah.
we can we bilaterally come to you with a mail explaining what we are planning for NGOs in India as a training? Then we can approach you, talk about it.
Yes, and I think, Julia, if you would like to explain a bit approach or like how we can connect on this.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for these questions. It's exactly what we also want to liberate later, because I guess it's our open door webinar and workshop, sorry, but it will continue. So we want to discover more and more how we can navigate NGOs on this path. So we would create in the next months a series of workshops. It would be online. Unfortunately, we cannot do it in all countries and in India as well, maybe next year. But for a moment, we would discover like how we can do it online. And for specific questions, we would be available that you can apply, and maybe we can find the solutions for your specific organization. Yeah, so it would be offer from our organization.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
So so here we can see that we look in two different paths, like paths of opportunities. So we will talk more about how you can use your AI, how it could improve the efficiency of your work, how we can work on the impact of your organization with this tool. But also in parallel, it would be other paths about risk. It's about data protection workshop. We are working now on developing about risk and bias, ethical workshop, and we would focus one specific workshop on AI Act and GDPR. So it would be several series of different events.
Wonderful.
So,
thank you, Julian.
Yeah, I mean, I know now we've reached 6:30, so I want to honor people's time. If you do have to leave, thank you so much for joining us today. It was a really great discussion. I know there's a lot of information, but don't worry, we're going to have all the resources available to you in the recording, as well as this board will be open. So use it as a tool for yourself. Send it home with your organization to think more on these topics, because it's a great tool for you. And we'll be sending out a survey also to give us some feedback. It's a new trial and error process, so we would appreciate so much to hear from you how we can help. And also a reminder to follow us on social media, on LinkedIn and on now Facebook, where you'll find all the updates that you need about upcoming workshops and this roadmap that we just showed you. So we hope to see you again very soon. Thank you so much for joining us, and we appreciate your time and your contributions.